30 minutes, comparing options, reading reviews, over a $20 purchase. Then, same week, $15,000 on something else. Without blinking, that's the wealthiest person you know, who probably doesn't have the highest salary in the room. And that thing they just did? That's what gave them away. And real money, I don't mean rich on paper, I mean slack. Enough room that money isn't quietly deciding your ordinary week. Everything on this list is that slack leaking. Rank everyone you know by who's actually secure, not who looks it. How much of that list comes out backwards? And not at random. Backwards in the flattering direction. So pick one. Not a type. One person. How would you actually know? Start with the 15,000 because that's the part that looks impulsive. It wasn't. That decision got made weeks earlier, alone. At a kitchen table nobody else was sitting at. They already knew what it cost, what it replaced, which account it was coming out of. By the time you watched it happen, it wasn't a decision at all. It was a delivery date. No drama because there was no uncertainty left to have. The $20 is the opposite problem. That one's still open. It's small, it repeats, and it quietly rewrites a month while you're not looking. So they look at it. 30 minutes on $20 isn't cheapness. It's the only decision in the pair that hadn't already been made. Sweating the small, breezing through the large. Of everything on this list, that's the signal I've come to trust most because you almost never see it in someone financing their life. You know the other version. The big purchase arrives with anxiety attached. Justification. A story about why you deserve it assembled somewhere between the store and the driveway. The small purchase gets no thought at all. That's not a character flaw. That's what it feels like when the large number never got settled in advance, so it has to get settled emotionally instead. So don't watch what someone buys, watch what they deliberate on. I'd bet the ratio tells you more than the price tag ever does. That one you can watch from across the room. The next one, you have to be at the table. You've seen the opposite 100 times. Somebody reaches for the check and makes sure the reach is visible. Announces they're treating everyone. What they're buying isn't dinner, it's the 30 seconds after. Now the other version. The check just, doesn't arrive. Somewhere between the entrees and dessert they got up, handed a card to the server, and said, "Run this one, don't bring it to the table." 10 minutes later, somebody looks around and says, "Wait, who got the check?" And they shrug. Don't worry about it. Then they change the subject. The signal isn't that they could afford the bill. Most of that table could. It's that they could afford not to be thanked for it. Most of us do a generous thing and keep a small ledger on it. Noticed, returned, remembered when it's someone else's turn. One evening proves nothing. Watch the pattern, not the night. Anyone can do this once. Almost nobody keeps doing it without ever collecting on it. Back to the table. Sign one was 30 minutes on a $20 purchase. This is that same behavior, run out to a much harder ending. Somebody researches something for weeks, sometimes months. Reviews, specs, forums, a spreadsheet nobody asked them to build. And then they don't buy it. From the outside, that reads as wasted time. It isn't. Everybody knows the trap where you keep going because of what you already put in. We tell that story about money, the concert ticket you paid for, so you drag yourself out in the rain. But money is the easy one to walk away from. It's a number. The brutal version is hours. Nobody puts 3 months into researching something and then calmly decides those months bought them nothing. So you buy the thing, and the purchase quietly becomes the interest payment on the time. Which is why most research isn't evaluation. It's paperwork. It's the file you assemble to justify a decision that got made in the first 10 minutes, before you'd read a single review. So watch for the walkaway, 2 months of becoming an expert, then a shrug, and it's gone. That's rarer than it sounds. It means the wanting got tested and didn't survive, and nothing about them needed it to. Now the objects. Look at someone's boots, their jacket, the pan they actually cook in. Old is not the tell. Old and obviously maintained is the tell. Resold, re-waxed, sharpened. Used hard for 9 years by somebody who intends to use it for 9 more. There's a version of spending where you buy cheap, replace often, and never think about upkeep. And another where you buy once, maintain it, and the thing outlives the trend that sold it to you. Done right, that second version usually costs less, but it asks 2 things most of us are short on. Patience at the moment of purchase. Attention after it. It isn't about the object, it's what a purchase is to them. Most of us treat one as a transaction. Money out, thing in, done. They treat it as a commitment, something they'll be living with for a decade. Which sounds precious right up until you notice it's also just cheaper. Those boots didn't resole themselves. And the next one isn't a thing at all, it's a person. They know a mechanic by name. And a tailor, a cobbler, a framer, a guy for the roof. The specifics don't matter. The shape does. Nobody meets a good mechanic at 11 at night on the shoulder of a highway. You meet one on an ordinary Tuesday years earlier for something small. So that's not a list of contacts. It's a stack of problems solved before they happened, which is why, when one of them finally does happen, it's such a boring afternoon. It doesn't photograph well. Nobody's building an audience on transmission fluid. If I asked the people on this list for their best money habit, I don't think many would say investing. I think they'd say some version of, I keep what I already own working. Now stop watching what people buy and listen to how they talk. Some people give you the price of everything, their rent, the vacation, the exact monthly payment on the car, unprompted, in a conversation that was about something else. And some people never do it, not once. Not because they're secretive. This is the thing the whole list has been circling. There's a difference between having money and performing having money. And the performance has one reliable signature. The price has to be in the story. When somebody tells you what something about, they're not describing the thing, they're telling you what to conclude about them. The number is a credential, and credentials get shown to people whose opinion you aren't sure of yet. So somebody describes a trip, the food, the weather, the strange thing at the airport, and a dollar figure never once enters the room. That's a different relationship with money entirely. It isn't that they're above it. Money just isn't the interesting part. Of the 12, that absence is the one I've learned to weight most heavily. It costs nothing to observe, and it's very hard to keep up. Performance is a habit. Habits leak. Most people read the silence as personality. It isn't. It's what it feels like when your spending doesn't need a second opinion. Watch what happens when somebody declines something. A dinner, a trip, a group gift with a number attached. Most of us explain. We give a reason, and the reason is a financial one wearing a scheduling costume. Busy that weekend, kids got a thing. The flat no gets a lot easier when money isn't pressing on the answer. No story, no excuse, no apologetic little laugh at the end of the sentence. The explanation is a tax. Insecurity pays it. You explain when some part of you thinks the no has to be authorized by somebody else. When your financial life is stable, nobody's authorizing anything. You're not asking. You're informing. This one gets misread constantly. The person who declines without a reason reads as rude. A little superior. And sometimes that's exactly what they are. Just as often, it's somebody who stopped running their calendar past a committee, which is one of the more expensive things money quietly buys. The ability to say one word and let it stand. And then the part that took me longer to notice. That refusal is nearly total, but there's one exception. One person who gets the explanation, the rearranged Saturday, the yes that costs them something. Who that person is tells you more than the 7 signs you've just heard. Because very often, that person is the friend who's visibly not doing as well as they are. This is the softest sign on the list. I can't prove it, and I'd still bet on it. Look at somebody's actual friends. Not the professional network, the 4 or 5 who'd get a text on a bad Tuesday. If one of them is clearly somewhere else financially and the friendship hasn't quietly reorganized itself around that, pay attention. Friendships don't die over money. There's no conversation. No moment anybody could point to. What happens is smaller and worse. The plans start having prices on them. Dinner becomes a $40 decision. The trip becomes a $1,500 one. And after enough of those, the friendship turns into logistics. Logistics are exhausting. So it thins. Then it's schedules. Then it's a birthday text. You've been on both sides of that. There's a friend you stopped seeing and told yourself it was schedules. And there was a night you read the right-hand side of the menu first and said you weren't that hungry. So the mechanism isn't a better person. It's that money isn't scarce enough to be doing the deciding. It looks like this. The group text. Somebody floats the expensive place. One person goes quiet. Not a no, just quiet. And the friend with real money says, "Actually, can we do the taco place?" I've been thinking about it all week. The quiet one goes home not knowing they were covered for. And it never comes up again because bringing it up would turn it into a favor, and the whole point was that it wasn't one. That might be the most quietly wealthy behavior on this entire list. That's the one you can't stage. The last four are different. Those you can't even see. Not unless you're already inside their week. So let's get inside the week. Listen to how a number gets said out loud. Somebody at the table is describing a car. It's only $680 a month. Somebody else describes the same car. It's $47,000. Both are true. They're doing completely different jobs. A monthly payment is how you shrink a number until it's small enough to say out loud. And a number only needs shrinking when it has to fit somewhere. Total cost is what you reach for when nobody has to be talked into anything, including you. Hold on to that one. Because a lender is going to hand you a monthly number too. Same trick. Much bigger object. Still inside the week. They buy time back. And they never mention it. Somebody cleans the house. Groceries arrive, a service handles the thing that would eat 3 hours of a Saturday, and none of it ever gets framed as a luxury or a treat. They don't say, "Oh, we have a cleaning person. The meal kit doesn't come up. The lawn guy doesn't come up." Their Saturday is just open. When buying time still feels like an indulgence, it comes with a register attached. Self-care. Sanity. I've earned this. The justification is there because the purchase still feels like it needs one. Past a certain point, it stops needing one. It turns into plumbing. It's how the week runs. Nobody announces they have running water, which is why this one barely shows up on lists like this. When it's real, there's nothing to see. If their Saturdays keep coming out empty and you've never heard why, that's the one. The dishwasher dies, the transmission goes, the roof starts letting weather in. For most households, that's a crisis, and for an unglamorous reason. According to the Fed's 2024 household survey, closer to 4 in 10 U.S. adults said they wouldn't cover a $400 emergency out of cash, savings, or a card they'd pay off right away. They'd carry it, borrow it, sell something. So when something breaks and you see panic, that's not drama, that's arithmetic. The cushion isn't there, so the expense doesn't get absorbed. It gets carried. And carrying it reshapes the next 3 months, which is why the reaction looks out of proportion to the dishwasher. It was never about the dishwasher. Now watch somebody whose money is real. There's a pause. Maybe a sigh. And then it just gets handled. A call. A date on the calendar. Out of their head by dinner. No fundraising. No moving it between cards. No 3-week hum of dread. This money was already spoken for. Long before anything broke, there was a number they already knew, sitting somewhere, doing exactly this job. This is the day it earns its keep, which is sign 1, arriving late. The 30 minutes over $20. The $15,000 without a flinch. All that boring precision about small, repeating things, this is what it was for. It was buying the afternoon the roof leaks and nothing else in your life has to move. Last one. And it isn't inside their week, it's in a decision nobody watched happen. Which is funny because it starts with the most visible thing on the list and you're not supposed to notice it. They drive something forgettable. A 12-year-old wagon in a color nobody chose on purpose. Something that starts every morning and has never once come up in conversation. One number reframes it. According to S&P Global Mobility, the average light vehicle on U.S. roads hit about 12.8 years old in 2025. Passenger cars specifically? around 14 and a half years. Sit with that. Driving an old car isn't a signal of struggling. It's nowhere near as unusual as our instincts about money make it feel. So the old car tells you nothing. What's missing from it does. No monthly payment. Nothing being financed on something that started losing value the moment it left the lot. And then the house. This is where everybody says they live below their means, a phrase so worn out it's stopped carrying information. They didn't buy less house. They bought less permission. At some point, a lender hands you a number, a monthly one naturally, and it arrives feeling like a fact about you. What you can afford. What you've earned. It isn't. It's a fact about what an institution is willing to risk on you, calculated by people who will never spend a night in the house. And it's hard to argue with. It's usually the only number in the room with authority behind it. Taking all of it doesn't feel reckless. It feels validated. That gap between the number they were offered and the number they took is the only thing on this entire list you genuinely cannot see. No boot to look at, no check to watch disappear, nothing to overhear. And it's the thing everything else runs on. The calm when the roof goes, the check nobody saw, the no that arrives without a reason. All of it downstream of one decision made years ago in a room with a lender to take less than they were allowed to. You never know it by looking. That's the point. That's been the point the whole time. 12 signals. Not one of them needs a bank statement. And the real question isn't whether you can spot them in other people. It's what happens the first time you run this list on somebody you'd already made up your mind about. Because some of those people were probably performing wealth that was never real. If noticing what's actually there instead of what's being advertised is useful to you, subscribe. Because there's a second list, the things that look like wealth and almost always mean debt. 11 of them. Same rules, nothing you need a bank statement to see. And once you've got both lists, you're guessing a lot less about the people around you. That one's next.